I'm Prasad from Structural Guide. You're welcome to the Structural Guide YouTube channel. Today we are going to discuss about cover to the reinforcement. Why we need cover for the reinforcement. What are the important factors to be decided when considering the cover of the reinforcement. How we select best cover to the reinforcement. All those will be discussed today. Please subscribe our YouTube channel. You may get the notification on new videos. Let's discuss about cover to the reinforcement. What is cover to the reinforcement? The gap between reinforcement bars and the concrete surface is called the cover to the reinforcement. So gap between reinforcement bar and cover, concrete surface. So this is the reinforcement bar we are talking about. So gap between this reinforcement bar and this concrete surface. This height is called the cover to the reinforcement. When you have bars lying in different directions, different bars have different cover. So this bars you consider this as a cover. So for this bar we consider this height as the cover. So from the bottom of the rebar to concrete surface, there are two different heights are there. So when you do the design, you have to consider this. So the bottommost bar you have a different cover. The bar laying on the top of that have a different cover. So why it is important? The most important thing we are going to discuss today. To protect the reinforcement from corrosion due to the aggressive environmental conditions. Maybe chemical attacks, maybe other environmental or maybe other exposure conditions. Now, when structures is exposed to the aggressive environment, uh, there are possibilities of corroding reinforcement. We have to consider the durability of the structure. So, in a structural element, the concrete and the steel are the main component that carry the stresses. Tensile stresses are carried by the tension reinforcement. So we need to protect the reinforcement. If they corroded, there will be issue. Carbonation attack, chloride issues, sulfate issues are some of the chemical that affect the corrosion of the reinforcement, that cause the corrosion of reinforcement. So if we have a sufficient depth or cover to the reinforcement, then these chemical or these material reaching time will be different. So we can extend because sometimes we may not be avoid the corrosion of reinforcement, but we can increase. So for example, when we consider structure close to the sea, specifically we define the cover to the reinforcement as a higher value, not like a normal structure built in the middle of the country, but if you build structure close to the sea, we have to use a higher cover. With that, we can protect the reinforcement. Second parameter we are going to discuss is to provide adequate embedment in the concrete to carry stress without slipping. Now, if you put the concrete or reinforcement in the surface, it will slip when you stresses apply. So to take the composite action, we have to embed the reinforcement in the concrete. Otherwise, it will slip. Now, depending on there are requirements like depending on the bar diameter, we have to provide at least the cover as the bar diameter. There are limitations like that are there. So if with that it's provide the adequate stress or the adequate transfer of the stress. So it's act like a composite in the concrete. Next thing we are going to discuss about the sufficient cover required to protect the structure from the fire. Now the if there is a fire in the structure, for example under the slab there is a fire. In such a situations, if the reinforcement are exposed with the temperature rising in that environment, reinforcement will yield. That causes the failure of the structure. That could cause higher yielding. So if you have adequate cover to the reinforcement, there is a protection for the reinforcement. Rise of the temperature will reduce with that, and also there is a sufficient protection. With that, the structure will be protected certain period. Now during the design, based on the fire rating, we specify the cover. So the 1 hour fire rating, 2 hour fire rating, 1.5 hour, depending on that we can select the cover to the reinforcement. So depending on that we have to consider in the designs. All those, from all those factors, the one of the most important thing is the durability of the structure. That the first point I discussed. So we have to maintain the durability of the structure based on the exposure conditions and all that. We have to select the cover. So selecting a correct cover in a structure is very important. Factors to be considered determine the cover to the reinforcement. So as discussed, durability of the structure is the most important thing in selecting the cover to the reinforcement. We consider the exposure class, that whether it's aggressive environment, it's continuous wetting and drying condition, or it's close to the sea, or whether it's exposed to the aggressive chemicals. Those exposure conditions should be considered. Based on those conditions, we select the cover to the reinforcement. So, in addition, there is indirect relationship between cover to the reinforcement and the concrete grade. Now, when we specify the concrete grade and these cover are somewhat correlated. So, when especially when we consider the exposure class together with cover, we consider when finalizing concrete grades, concrete minimal cement contents, water cement ratios. All those are interrelated. So all those are actually connected with the durability of the structure. So those all those factors should be considered when we go into select the cover to the reinforcement. Actually, based on the cover, we don't go into select the grade, but they are interconnected. That we have to keep in mind. Next thing is the fire rating. As I discussed previously, also we have to consider, depending on the fire rating, we have to select the cover. How many hours we want to last the structure without damage. That is there because we need to safely evacuate the structures from evacuate the people from the structure if there is an fire. Structural requirement we have to consider. Adequate embedment to transit stress. As I previously explained, we need to maintain adequate cover to avoid the slips of the reinforcement. So, as a rule, we maintain the cover as the bar diameter of this particular bar that is carrying the stress. So, at least we maintain bar diameter as a cover in a special structures like columns, beams, when we have a when the tensile forces or compressive forces are there. Therefore, we have to consider many factors like I explained when we selecting the cover to the reinforcement. So today we have discussed about the cover to the reinforcement and how it is important to us and what are the factors to be considered when selecting the cover to the reinforcement. Let's meet again from a new video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You may get the notification on new videos.